Jedi.
Welcome back to Tano Cast, episode 2. So we were lucky enough to receive 2 episodes immediately first week. Kind of threw me off a little bit, but we're here to dive into episode 2. If you haven't seen episode 1 yet, what are you doing with your life? Go back, Scruffy Nerf Herders, get out of here. Go watch Tano Cast episode 1, and then come back and watch episode 2, unless you're going traditional Star Wars order. And when we have episode 4, 5, 6, you watch 4, 5, 6 first, and then you come back and watch 1, 2, 3. I don't know why you would do it, but
hey, Star Wars fashion.
Exactly.
Star Wars fashion. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
We are fortunate enough to get 2 episodes at once. Love that. Love that they do that. Could you imagine having to wait a week after watching Sabine just get stabbed?
Do you think they did that on purpose? Like, that's such a cliffhanger that they're like, audiences won't be able to wait.
Maybe.
Because she was such a beloved character in Rebels that if, like, you're going to kill her off in the first episode, like, whew, there's going to be some angry people out there.
I think unfortunately for me, I immediately just didn't believe that she was dead. Like, when it happened, like, I was like, she's not dead. Like, yeah. I don't know why. Just something in my head was like, there's no way she's dead. And then it didn't help that, like, immediately when it ended, after the credits, the very next, like, thumbnail of the second episode showed Sabine. And I was like, okay, clearly she's not dead. Like,
yeah,
come on, Disney. You could have had saved that maybe for the second episode, made people wait a week.
Yeah, I did see, the only controversy I saw about this one was that the first episode was like an hour, like 50 minutes or something.
56 minutes.
This one was like 30 minutes.
44.
So I feel like if you would have put the first one out, made me wait a week, and then I only get like a 34-minute episode, I would be like, but
it happens
that's
a lot.
My only issue. Yeah.
No, they do that a lot. They did it with Obi-Wan. They did it with Mandalorian. Typically the first episode's usually like close to an hour, 50 minutes, something like that. And then usually the next few are like 36-minute, 38-minute episodes. And it's like, come on. And I hate that. I hate that so much. Like, I don't know. I'd rather it just be all the same time frame, especially if you give us like a long period of time. Or I think one time they were like, oh, longest episode of Mandalorian ever. And it was like 54 minutes. And I was like,
yeah,
okay.
Those 60 seconds really came in.
Exactly. But Sabine's alive.
Yeah. I'm very excited to talk to you about this episode because the first one I thought was good. The second one, I think just because of the pacing of it and it being so short, definitely my favorite of the 2. I loved this episode. Where do you fall? Are you a fan of this episode, or are you still confused on who the characters are?
Even more confused. Like, I think I have the ranking opposite because I felt like the first one did a little bit more justice in terms of like explaining a little bit on who the characters were compared to this one. The second episode was like, hey, we did our job. You should know who these characters are by now. But it was just more and more questions coming on my end. And I was just like, I don't know what is going on. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to keep track of. But I think what upsets me the most about it is knowing that there's already material out there that explains the background of these characters. I know that they're not really going to do that. And I think I would be okay watching this show with the understanding of not knowing who characters are and kind of getting the sense that there's some background between characters. But when you know that background's already been explained, you know they're not really going to go more into it. And I'm having to kind of like piece it together myself, which is making it a little difficult. But that's why I have you.
Yeah. We talked about it in episode 1, but it's just definitely like, when whoever at Disney said that you don't have to watch Rebels before you watch the show, I hate you. I hate you.
Lie.
I wish I would have watched all of Rebels before watching this, because I feel like it would have made. And I'm 2 seasons into Rebels. I have a very good baseline of who these characters are and where we're at. But at the same time, I'm just like, I feel like it would have been a way more enjoyable experience than where I'm at right now.
I agree, and I'm kind of frustrated because I think Mandalorian was the last like Star Wars thing we kind of had, and it's been a few months I think since that was out, and I absolutely would have watched more of Clone Wars and watched more of Rebels, and I guess I could have done that anyways. But as soon as I heard that you did not have to see those to understand this one, I was like, oh, okay. And it was like it wasn't as much of a priority, but if it was more like they explained you're gonna want to have watched those, I would have been doing that this whole time.
Right. And I guess here's the thing. We're 2 episodes in. right? So maybe at the end of the story arc, we're gonna be like, oh yeah, you really didn't need to see Rebels. Like overall, the whole story kind of made sense, but I still feel like Rebels is it's good enough of a show that I'm kind of kicking myself for not finishing it before watching this. But
No, I
Rebel
definitely wish
Cast
I had
coming
watched it now at
soon.
this point, especially being 2 episodes in. I'm like, clearly they're not explaining any more anytime soon. This is really much like you kind of have to know the background of these characters to understand some of the awkward silences that have been in the episodes already. Like between
Yeah,
Ahsoka and Sabine when they first introduced them last episode, like they were just kind of sitting there staring at each other, and I was like, do they know each other?
yeah,
And then
tension was
she's like,
tight.
Master. And I was like, whoa, Master. Whoa, what? And then I think in this episode, she's like, calls her Padawan. And I'm like, what is happening here? I'm missing
Yeah,
something.
it's kind of like when like you show up to Christmas and your aunt and your mom are fighting, and you're just like, what did I walk into? Like, I don't know what's going on here.
I'll just be
Yeah.
outside.
So you mentioned it. The episode begins with Sabine in recovery. She survived from the Widowmaker that killed Qui-Gon, but I thought it was really interesting. She's like recovering in the room, right? And she's like, "Oh, I lost the star map to the droids, and then I got my butt whooped by some Sia-looking anti-Jedi that came out." And she's like, "I still want to help you, Ahsoka." And then Ahsoka stabs her again with the line of "You've done enough," and I'm just like, "Damn!" Like,
You said stabbed her again. I was like, did I miss something? Did I go back and watch it? What? When did that happen?
yeah.
Yes, absolutely stabbed her with verbal lightsabers.
Yeah, I was just like, "Damn, Ahsoka!" Like,
You've done enough. I was like,
yeah.
oh, yikes.
Yeah, it's a very interesting aspect, and like we get to see like Ahsoka go to the rebel hideout and see like all of her stuff. She sees the hologram of Ezra and kind of going through like this whole montage, and like assassin droid drops from the ceiling, legit scared the shit out of me. Like I wasn't ready for it because she's like, "Did you kill one of the droids?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I just assumed it was gonna be a dead droid on the ground. But then
Right.
out of nowhere, this droid just dropped from the ceiling, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, wasn't ready for it.
I fully assumed the same thing, that it was just going to be like the droid on the ground. And I did think it was weird that it didn't like point out the droid on the ground immediately, like the camera angle and stuff. But, and I didn't catch this. Clearly Ahsoka did, but that's probably why the cat wasn't inside,
Oh,
is because it was just waiting outside and it was kind of making some weird noises. And Ahsoka was like looking at the cat. And then I'm assuming she fully understood that there was the HK droid still inside there because she was ready.
oh yeah, always ready, always ready. Ahsoka.
So they take the head of this. They take the whole, just the head
Yeah,
of the droid
just the
back
head.
to
Yeah,
Sabine.
yep.
And she explained. I mean, it was cool about it was clearly Sabine had a. I think she sliced it with Ezra's lightsaber, right? I think she
Yes.
sliced it, and then they made the line of talking about how they're very resilient. She's like me, this droid's very resilient. So she
Yeah.
goes to explain that, you know, they can provide power to it, and typically there's some backup power supplies that will keep it alive, and it can basically kind of like repair itself. And that's why they were excited to have that, because since the star map was taken, they were able to, which, by the way, I'm very happy that they have Rubik's Cubes in Star Wars, because last episode when she was doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a little Rubik's Cube in Star Wars. So I'm glad it's not gone.
Yeah.
But they basically were going into the HK's memory bank, memory core, to
Yeah.
see where the galaxy was that Ezra and Thrawn are potentially at right now.
And that
And
led
then it turned
to
into a
one of
bomb.
my favorite scenes where like they're like, or it could explode. And Reese was like, what?
My favorite part was what's Green Girl? Hana?
Hera.
Where they're like, hey, this could explode. And then I can't remember who said it first. I think Sabine was like, I'm down to try. And then Hera's like, yeah, do it. the Hu Yang?
Yeah.
Is that his name? He was like, that's because you're a hologram. You're the one not here. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And so obviously they don't blow up, but they hack the droid's head and they find out. I didn't write down the name because I was like so enthralled in the show at this point. I was just like, okay, I'm in. But they're like, basically, this droid came from this shipyard where they're converting old Imperial ships.
Corellia?
See, I wrote that down, but then I was like, no, that's the planet from Star Fox. I was like, there's no way that was.
Thank you. I thought the same thing. As soon as they said Corellia, I was like,
yeah.
Why do I
Star
know that?
Fox, Corellia needs your help.
Do a barrel roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the no, I think it's Corneria is Star Fox.
Now we're
right?
idiots. Now we're idiots.
Yeah, Corneria.
I don't even. Cornea. That's an eyeball thing.
Come back next week for Star Fox Cast. We'll be talking about that, and we did play Star Fox this weekend, so that is something we had something together.
Poor Slippy.
Yeah, Slippy died. But so they go to this Imperial recovery yard that apparently these robots are coming from, and they do some investigation. And so Ahsoka and Hera meet there, and it's our introduction to, dare I say, one of the greatest droids that Star Wars has ever invented since R2-D2. Chopper.
Who are you talking
My
about?
man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get to Chopper, but yes.
Okay.
Chopper was awesome. Maybe Chopper was introduced before, because I think Chopper was first shown on Hera's ship, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was just there kind of briefly, and he was kind of just like turning his head. He wasn't really saying much or doing much, but are you talking about the part where they were talking to those people trying to figure out where the HK droid came from?
Yeah.
My favorite thing about this entire scene, where they're talking to this guy who's like in charge of everything, and he's like, oh, it says it's classified. And she's like, well, I'm a general, so unclassify it. And he's like, I can't do that. So then he calls a protocol droid, like a C-3PO looking droid. And then the C-3PO droid that's the one that snitches. Like, like, you have HK droids. No, we don't have that. And C-3PO's like, yeah, I saw some of those earlier. It said it had some high clearance. So yeah, totally saw that. Like, they're all trying to lie. And that stupid C-3PO droid's like just totally stunned. I'm like, of course it's that type of droid snitching them out.
And that's such a cool story arc that I really enjoyed in this. Is like, obviously the Empire's dead, but you're still gonna have people that are like pro-Empire, right? That are like, screw the Republic, we're all Empire. And that's what we see here, is that this shipyard is filled with former Empire employees, quote unquote spies, I guess you could say, or like undercover Imperial soldiers. But that's what this whole shipyard is. And I don't know if you picked it up. So Chopper is kind of one of the only robots that you can kind of understand what he's saying, because it's like blended. And so when Hera and Ahsoka go to investigate, Chopper basically goes, I got a bad feeling about this. And he's like, yeah.
So I freaking love Chopper. I thought he was hilarious. And exactly like you said, you can kind of understand what he's saying. Like,
yeah,
there's a scene later on where he's like kind of looking through parts and stuff, and he says like, you went through my stuff, and she's like, I didn't go through your stuff. And he goes, yes you did. Like, he's like, yes you did. Like, you could just hear him say that. And then when he finds it, he's like, oh. And I'm like, dude, I love this little guy. This guy's great.
And what's great is, like, I had an appreciation for him in Rebels, but like, maybe it gets better in the last 2 seasons of Rebels. But like, this show was like, oh dude, they captured Chopper so well. And I feel like Chopper was the star for me of this episode, especially for that scene you're talking about. Is so Hera's like chasing. We're jumping around a bit, but like, Hera's chasing this ship in the sky, and Chopper's like, "Why don't you shoot at it?" Like, he's like, "Shoot at it," and she's like, "It's gonna fall to the city." And Chopper's like, "So?" Like,
I love Chopper. He's a badass.
Yeah, and then again, he's like, "Did you go through my stuff?" And she's like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, I found it." Like,
I love that though. I think that was so funny that they created a droid where you as a person can kind of understand what they're saying, because it's always been like with R2-D2, you hear his little beeps and stuff, and then Anakin like says, or says whatever he's saying or answers him. But now that you feel like you're kind of almost immersed, where you're like, hey, I kind of understand this droid. It was great.
Yeah, he's a sassy little robot.
Yeah. Speaking about these Imperial spies, they're idiots. The guy's like, for the Empire, and stands up and tries to like announces himself before he attacks. I was like, what an idiot. Like, they're all like looking at each other. They totally seem super suspicious, super sus, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's just like, for the Empire! Points a gun.
He was
like,
going into work that day, and he was like, "You
I
know
laughed.
what? I've had enough."
Hey, I'm gonna let the secret out. It was just so funny, man.
Or he was like in the mirror the day before, and he's like, "I gotta prep myself," and he keeps like
For the
repeating,
Empire.
"For the Empire, for the Empire." He's just
For
like
the
repeating
Empire?
how he's gonna say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene kind of cracked me up because like all hell broke loose and like blasters are shooting off, but I'm also just like Ahsoka broke glass somehow, and I was just like jumped through a window and hero landed and started chasing down this ship that was leaving with like a Imperial. I guess they said it was like a hyperdrive that they were going to hook up for some other ship, and Ahsoka's chasing them down, and then this Inquisitor, who I'm assuming is an Inquisitor, shows up and kind of confronts Ahsoka. And I don't know if you've Googled any of this, but there's a lot of conspiracies about who this Inquisitor is.
Yeah,
Um,
I literally wrote down, who the F is this guy?
so there is a Inquisitor in the final episode of season 2 of Rebels who we see that has a similar
Okay.
lightsaber, similar look, and kind of just escapes from the battle and never
Oh.
like dies. So they're saying like, oh, this could be him. But there's also a conspiracy theory out there, and I don't think this is it because I feel like it's a little too on the nose and obvious. There's people who think that that might be Ezra. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a little too on the nose for me. I'm like, I don't think that's Ezra. Like,
Could you imagine though?
yeah, that he's gone full baddie.
Well, no. That kind of plays really well into what I was thinking about these Jedi Sith people. What if they are being like somewhat mind controlled by these witches?
Ooh.
Like, I know they're trying to go get Thrawn, but what if they are being mind controlled? And what if that ends up being Ezra?
I think that's a solid idea that like maybe it's mind control.
I'm just saying, like, they have the whole like, these aren't the droids you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say?
And that's
the
a
Sith
side of
can't do
magic that
something?
like we've never seen before. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, it could possibly. Yeah, it would be interesting. The only holdup I have with like the whole like Ezra theory is that like he threw himself on Thrawn's ship and flew off to this like new galaxy, which we'll get into in a little bit. But like, it's one of those, and I'm like, how did he get back?
How did he get
And
back? And they didn't bring back Thrawn. Yeah.
right, yeah, like you're gonna bring one guy back, and it's Ezra. Like,
Yeah.
now if Ezra's the new Thrawn, and he's the new like he took Thrawn's place, hey, that's a cool story. But I don't think he would be an Inquisitor.
Has is Thrawn the blue guy?
Yeah, that's the blue
Okay.
guy.
We haven't, as far as I know, seen any live action anything about Thrawn, have we?
No, so this will be the first. He's in Rebels, and there's also a book.
But we haven't
But
seen like a trailer where it shows him actually.
they have. There is
Oh, they
a
did.
Ahsoka
Okay.
trailer where there's like a blue dude in it, which I'm assuming is going to be Thrawn. But
Right.
Star Wars could throw us.
What
like,
if it's
for a
Cad
loop.
Bane?
Yeah, 100%. Right? Like they could be like jokes on like that was like something Disney is very common of doing is like how many Marvel trailers have we gotten where it looks like one thing's happening, but then the Marvel trailer like, oh, that never happened in the movie.
That's true.
Like, so, and I've seen rumors, and again, rumors. This is the first season of Ahsoka, so that they're planning multiple seasons.
Yeah,
so
already.
It's like,
when you go to it, it says season 1, episode 1, season 1, episode 2. They already put, and I think with Mandalorian the first time, I think it just said episode 1, episode 2. It didn't say like season 1.
yeah.
So I caught on that too when I was looking at it.
So I mean, there could be a possibility that like the final episode we just see Thrawn and it just ends. And it's like we're building into like a season 2 or whatever we're gonna do. But the thing that I found kind of really cool, and it was like kind of trippy, is like so the anti Jedi of Balin and Shin, they take the Star Path to this like ancient witch ritual site and plug it in, and it reveals the galaxy. And they dropped a line that they're like, this is a galaxy that we've never seen before. It's an untouched galaxy where an ancient species many years ago visited us and then left us, but this is where they're from. So I'm like, we're literally getting a galaxy that's so far away that we've never seen in the Star Wars universe, that is full of heroes, full of villains, full of characters, And I'm like, dude, if that's how we're going to expand Star Wars, where we're going to get this whole new galaxy of characters, sign me up, man. I'm like, that's so exciting.
It's crazy to think too that how much like space travel they have in Star Wars, and there's a place that they've never been to. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. When they were talking about that, and even like, so before, I think just before that scene too, and I'm sorry to kind of go back, but there was just
So you're
two
good.
things that I loved. The fight between this Inquisitor or whatever the heck he
Uh-huh.
is. Did you see subtitles? I know he didn't talk, but did it say anything about
I
what his
don't
name
think it.
was?
I didn't.
Or
I didn't
her
see
name?
anything.
Could be a
Yeah,
girl.
could be a girl. It was wearing a cape and it took it off pretty sassy. It was like the cape came off.
At first I was like, is that Balin? I'm like, I'm pretty sure Balin was bigger than that. And I was like, I don't think it's him. So then I was very confused, and the fight sequence was just awesome. And then they're like running, and the ship comes that Shin was on and was just shooting. And I just loved that Ahsoka just did not care. She was just
Yeah.
running just straight into the gunfire, laser fire, whatever you want to call it. And then for some reason, I don't know why. I really do not know why I felt this, but when he jumped onto the ship with Shin and they're kind of like turning around looking at him at Ahsoka, I just wanted her to flip him off. Like something about me was like, just throw up a finger. Like
Yeah.
I don't know why. It just would have been so funny to me. But also at the same time, I'm like, their goal is accomplished. They got that hyperdrive thing, but it's like, why didn't the two of them go back and fight her? Like,
Yeah, they could have taken
there's
her.
two of them.
You'd think they'd be able to take her.
Unless Ahsoka's just got a reputation, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole arc that I'm kind of seeing pretty heavily in this show is that like you've got Sabine and Ahsoka and then Shin and Balin. So I'm like I have to assume we're gonna get like an episode where the two of them face off with the other two, and we have like a master and apprentice versus master and apprentice fight.
Well, so the thing with Balin is, like I said, he seems very. I don't even know, man. It's like a tune, maybe, because when you were talking about that ritual ceremony thing that the witch was doing, she even was like, "What do you see?" Oh, was it then, or maybe they were on a
Yeah,
ship?
no, it was then. It was then.
But she even was like, "Balin, what do you see?" And he kind of like closed his eyes and like got in touch with the Force, and he's like, "She's disconnected from the Force," or something like that. And she's like, "But she's coming." And so then he's like made this comment like, "Well, it's really sad." And then she's like, he goes, "It's really sad because she's, one of the last Jedi." And so then she's like, "Oh, you're getting sentimental, huh?" And he's like, "Nope, just truth." And I was like, And so that again was like making me wonder, like, who the heck are these people?
Right.
Like I said, hired guns. I really feel like they're more like hired guns, is what it feels like.
Well, the other part that's always interesting, like with this story, is so it's after Return of the Jedi, and like the assumption is that Luke is rebuilding the Jedi Order,
Yeah.
right? Like
Okay.
that's what he was doing at this time. But everyone's like, "Oh, Ahsoka's the last Jedi," or she's like that, and I'm like, "Well, screw Luke and his school, like full of Jedi." But like all that stuff's going on, right? So like Luke is training Grogu and building that school, but
Mm-hmm.
like Luke literally just killed the Emperor with Vader and blew up the Death Star. And he's like, "Oh, there's no more Jedi." So it's like, what about Luke? What about Leia?
Yeah.
What about everybody else? But I don't know.
It does feel very disconnected from like the standard Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
plot. Like you don't really hear much about Vader, Sidious, Luke. Like you don't really hear much about that, even though that's the world they're living in now. Is a world after that. They are very much making it feel like, I guess, how it was with Rebels, but yeah, it just doesn't. You don't hear a lot of talk like that. I mean, I think in the trailer too, we hear Balin say Anakin's name and talk to us. So clearly, at some point, they talk to each other. But yeah, it just feels very disconnected from that. So
Yeah, I'm curious. Are you more interested in Balin's backstory than Reva's?
ooh, yes,
Okay.
and I think because they've already created a lot of intrigue with this Balin character, because
Mm-hmm.
he does seem like somebody with power, but it's curious to think where where did he turn? If he really was a Jedi and he was one of the Padawans or something that escaped, what made him turn to the orange side? since they're not reds.
You know what? We were talking about the Disneyfication of like merchandise. 100%, they have an orange lightsaber, so they can sell one more kyber crystal at Galaxy's Edge.
Do
They're
they
now
really?
gonna have an. Think about it. They
Yeah.
now people are gonna be like, I want an orange kyber. I don't.
Yeah.
But I guess you have to assume your lightsaber is RGB, so it can hit like all the colors. So orange would probably be doable. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, they have yellow. They have yellow and red.
yeah, that's true. Yellow and
Put it
red
in
just be
between.
right in the center. Yep. So yeah, so the other scene we kind of hinted at was like this chase scene where Hera's in her ship with Chopper chasing down the giant hyperdrive in space. And it was funny for me because I was like, just shoot the thing out of the sky. And I think I missed the scene the first watch through where she's like, I can't, it's going to crash into the city. But I kept coming back to this thing where I was like, shoot the thing out of the sky. Like, why is that not happening? And then it wasn't until the second playthrough that they were like, oh no, it's going to crash into the city. But I'm like, still, that feels like it's something that, like, I don't know, just shoot it out of the sky. Just take the risk. Like, I don't know. I guess that's why I'm not a general of a rebellion, because
what was the precious cargo that was on it that they were after?
The precious cargo was the hyperdrive. That's what they were taking. And so she was trying to catch them, and I think trying to like also catch the people who are still working for the Empire. And that's why, like, if I shot it down, I think it would just crash into the city. Like, because they showed the hyperdrive showing up to like the ring ship in space, and they were attaching it to the ship. So there was like 3 hyperdrives. And I think the idea that I took away was that they needed these 3 hyperdrives in order to do this deep space travel, in order to get to this galaxy that Thrawn's there. That
far away galaxy.
Right, yeah. So, again, interesting, but the big takeaway, Chopper, 100%.
Chopper's the best. I freaking already love him. I want to make a Chopper. I think they sell them at Galaxy's Edge. I want one.
Yeah, they do. 100%. So, where we ended off was Sabine is healed and ready to join the fight. We get a really cool like samurai scene where she's like cutting her hair and putting back her Mandalorian helmet on and grabbing her lightsaber. And I'm interested to see how she develops as a character further in this show, and like, does she continue being a Jedi? And then we see the bad guys on their way to Thrawn. So it's kind of an interesting place to end this. Definitely not a cliffhanger like the first episode, but a good place where I feel like 7-day wait time. Like, oh, I can wait. I'm not like, oh, I have to see the next episode.
There's a lot going on. That, it makes you excited for the story.
Yeah. So we ranked the first episode 1 through 10. Where does episode 2 fall for you?
I think I'm gonna give it an 8. I think it was a little bit better than the first one. I like the action. Freaking Chopper, whatever. I would have ranked it. Give it 2 more. So I'll go an 8, just because of Chopper.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep an 8. So I gave the first episode an 8, but I'm gonna give this one an 8 just because I feel like it was a solid episode, but again, it was a little short. But the pacing felt good. Like, it didn't feel like it was a rushed episode. But
definitely
a lot happened. Like, you hit it on the head when that happened. Like, there's a lot to take away from this.
I literally was like, one of my notes was, you made mention of needing to see Rebels before understanding the show. Holy cow, there seems to be so much that went on that I have no idea because I never saw Rebels.
Yeah, like, apologies.
So yeah, not your fault. I mean,
we should have just been filming Rebel Cast this entire.
Yeah. We could have, but
you could have definitely.
I'm excited though. I'm excited for next week's episode. Excited to dive further into the show, and I like it so far.
I agree. I'm definitely in. And episode 3 launch. Do you think they're going to be continuing this Tuesday launch date?
That's what it said. Every Tuesday.
Okay, that threw me off big time. Definitely threw me off, because it was like I was prepared to like watch it Wednesday, like during the afternoon, and then I'm like, oh my god, it's 6 o'clock. It's out. I'm like, oh, okay, like let's watch it now. So
I think Wednesdays was Mando, right?
Yeah, but they said Wednesday for Ahsoka originally, and then I guess they just decided to do it Tuesday night. So they went early. So I don't know.
Well,
definitely interesting.
On the let me see if I can check out the Disney Plus real quick. But I'm pretty sure when I saw like on the the streaming service, it said, oh, I have to log in. Oh, fun. Pretty sure it's Tuesday.
Why don't you tell us all your username and your password real quick?
Yeah, we'll do that. Let's do that real quick. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, let me spell the password out. It's 1, 2,
all right,
3, 4, 5.
It says right here, 2-part premiere now streaming, new part every Tuesday.
Okay, so we will be back next Tuesday for episode 3. So for those of you listening, August 29th, next episode of Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
Be
there,
excited to see where this goes.
Or be square.
And again, is this a 6-part series?
I don't know.
How many episodes of Ahsoka? 8 episodes. So we have 6 episodes left. A lot to cover in 6 episodes. But
one thing I forgot to ask too when we were discussing this was Ahsoka's ship. Is that something that was from Rebels?
I assume so.
I didn't know. I just thought it was a really cool ship, and I was like, hats
like,
off to. Yeah, I was like vertical, and then it kind of like goes horizontal when it lands. I was like, that's sick. I also really like the Sith, Jedi turn bad, whoever they are. I think their ship looks really cool too. It's almost like the Imperial transport, but looks a little different. I like it a lot.
One thing that I took away from this, and this is like behind baseball, but the actress that plays Hera, she's married to Ewan McGregor in real life.
No way.
Yeah, I saw a photo of them together, and I was like, oh, how's this relationship? And like they're married. So Mazel Tov. Keep Star Wars in the family, you know? So awesome. We will see you all next week for another episode of Ahsoka. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and of course, like, share, comment, and we'll see you next week. May the Force be with us.
Be with you.